No mortal could truly comprehend the vastness, the sheer, crushing weight of divinity and decay that was the Golden Throne. It was not merely a seat, but a cathedral of adamantium and auramite, fused with arcane mechanisms and ancient bioengineering. Its scale dwarfed any man, an impossible monument that seemed to tear at the very fabric of reality. At its heart, enthroned in silent, agonizing majesty, resided the Emperor of mankind. Millennia had passed since his body was irrevocably broken, since the fires of his battle with the arch-traitor had left him a living corpse, interred within the life-sustaining sarcophagus of the throne. He was a shriveled husk, a being of unimaginable power reduced to a skeletal effigy, yet his mind remained a singular bulwark against the darkness. From this eternal prison, he projected his indomitable will across the galaxy, pushing back the encroaching horrors of the warp, guiding the Astronomicon, the psychic lighthouse without which interstellar travel would be impossible. He was a god, chained and suffering, the silent scream of his existence echoing through the very soul of humanity. Every solar cycle, 1,000 carefully selected souls were brought before him. These were not common criminals or slaves, but powerful psychers, individuals whose minds resonated with the raw energy of the Empyrean. Their lives, their very essences, were not merely taken but willingly offered, their psychic energy siphoned and consumed to fuel the Golden Throne, to bolster the Emperor's fading strength. It was a daily, unending communion, a vast, horrific sacrifice upon the altar of human survival. Young Kalen, an adeptus scribe tasked with a rare and solemn inventory of an ancient chamber adjacent to throne room, felt the psychic hum even through the thick, lead-lined walls. He had heard the hushed whispers, the grim legends, but to be this close, to feel the oppressive presence, was something else entirely. He saw adept Lyra, her face etched to the weariness of decades in the inner sanctum, watching the silent procession of psychers being led down a long, echoing corridor. Each figure, robed and bound by arcane chains, walked with disturbing serenity towards their final destination. "It's true, then," Kalen murmured, his voice barely a whisper against the omnipresent thrum. 1,000 souls. Every day. Lyra did not turn, her gaze fixed on the disappearing column. 1,000 souls, she confirmed, her voice flat, devoid of emotion, fed into the maw of his suffering. It is the price of our existence, Kalen. The price for every sunrise across every world in the Imperium, for every ship that traverses the void, for every breath we are permitted to draw. Kalen shivered, despite the oppressive heat of the chamber. And if it ever ceases? Finally, Lyra turned, her eyes, though weary, held a terrifying glint of resolve. Then the Golden Throne fails. The Astronomicon dies. The Imperium collapses and a billion souls are lost to the demons of the warp, instantly and utterly. This, she gestured vaguely toward the unseen Emperor, is the only thing preventing that. He endures so that we may endure, and in turn, we must feed his eternal hunger. It was a stark, brutal truth, woven into the very fabric of the Imperium's grim reality, a bargain of unimaginable horror and desperate necessity. Across the billion stars of the Imperium, humanity fights an unending war. It is a struggle for existence on a scale so vast it defies mortal comprehension, a galactic meat grinder sustained only by fanatical faith and the crushing, unyielding will of a dying god. From the outermost fringe worlds, where primitive tribes battle lurking horrors, to the ancient, industrial hearts of Segmentum Core, every day is a testament to the Imperium's colossal, brutal might. Countless regiments of the Astra Militarum, humanity's vast infantry, march to war on 1,000,000 fronts. Armored columns of Lehman Russ tanks rumble over shattered cities, their tracks grinding bone and rubble alike. Battle fleets, 1,000 strong, sail the treacherous currents of the warp, their Gothic superstructures bristling with weapon emplacements, ready to unleash firestorms upon alien invaders and renegade vessels. Above all, the genetically engineered space marines, angels of death clad in ceramite, strike like avenging thunderbolts, their superhuman prowess a terrifying rebuttal to the galaxy's myriad threats. On the besieged world of Gyron Prime, General Kalen stood before a flickering holographic map, his face illuminated by the swirling red arrows indicating Xeno's advances. The ground beneath the command bunker trembled with the constant thud of artillery. Another breach on Sector Gamma, he growled, his voice a gravelly whisper against a din. The greenskins are relentless. Beside him, astropath Lyra sagged, her eyes closed, a thin trickle of blood weeping from her nose. She clutched a vox-cantor to her chest, her pale fingers trembling. "General," she rasped, her voice thin with strain, "I have a new transmission. Faint but urgent. From Segmentum Command. The warp currents are churning. More attacks predicted along the Veil Nebula. And a desperate plea from the Chronos system. Xeno's incursions." Kalen's eyes snapped to a distant, star-dusted point on the map. Chronos? But our last reports, they were clear. How could this be? Lyra slowly opened her eyes. Their blue irises now cloudy with inner torment. "The Emperor's light guides us, General, but the darkness is vast. The astropathic choirs on holy terror struggle to pierce every shadow. The sacrifices, they barely sustain the beacon through this maelstrom." Her gaze drifted, seeing not the bunker walls, but distant, unimaginable horrors. They whisper of a new strain of viral mutation on the prison moon, Oakhaven. And cults, General. Everywhere, the whispers of the dark gods, turning brother against brother, family against family. Kalen sighed, the sound heavy with the weight of 1,000 wars. He ran a hand over his scarred scalp. "I know, Lyra. I know. Every soul on that golden throne is another day we fight. Another day the Astronomican's light keeps the void from swallowing us whole, from echinus hordes of the Tyranids, ravenous and numberless, to the insidious whispers of chaos cults that turn faith into madness. The Imperium faces an endless array of enemies. Psychers, those whose minds are tuned to the turbulent energies of the warp, are both a crucial asset and a terrifying liability. Their raw power, carefully managed by the Adeptus Astrotelepathica, allows interstellar communication and limited foresight. Yet, without the Emperor's ceaseless psychic vigil, their minds would be mere gateways for demonic entities, turning hope into destruction. This is the truth of humanity's survival, a constant, brutal, and horrifying war, fought without end, without mercy, for the barest chance of continued existence. The acrid tang of plasma discharge mingled with the stench of scorched earth and something indescribably foul, the lingering miasma of Xeno's biology. On the ravaged surface of Kaler 6, the sun was a bruised purple orb, barely piercing the perpetual pall of ash and smoke that clung to the sky. Every horizon, every distant rumble, promised more death, more destruction. This was the only constant, the unchanging rhythm of existence across countless imperial worlds. Humanity did not build or innovate. It merely survived, clawing its way through each dawn, each night, under the shadow of overwhelming existential dread. Colonel Varric watched the flickering data slates in command bunker, his face etched with fatigue that went bone deep. Another planetary system lost. "Lieutenant Roddick," he rasped, his voice a gravelly whisper against the distant thud of artillery. "Sector Gamma, 7. Completely overrun by the Tyranid vanguard. We poured 2 entire regiments into that meat grinder just last cycle, barely a month ago." Lieutenant Roddick, younger but with eyes that had seen far too much for her 20 years, adjusted the comm bead in her ear. "The astropaths report a surge in warp activity across the entire segmentum. Sir, the psychic echoes, they're unbearable for many. We've lost 3 more to the Black Gulf in the last 12 hours. Their minds simply fractured under the strain." She paused, her gaze drifting to the battle map, a swirling vortex of red and green icons. "Are we even making a dent, Colonel? Every victory feels like a momentary reprieve before the next, larger wave crashes down upon us." Varric allowed himself a bitter, humorless chuckle. "Making a dent, Roddick? We're a sandcastle against an ocean. A tiny, defiant sandcastle built on the bones of 1 billion others. This isn't a war we win, girl. It's a war we endure. We hold the line, for as long as we can, until our own lines break, and then we die, and another generation takes our place to hold another line." He ran a gloved hand over the holographic projection of Kaler VI's contested sectors. Gyron Prime is barely holding. Cadia is a nightmare. Every day brings news of another world under siege, another forgotten Imperial Guard garrison fighting to the last man against some new, grotesque horror unearthed from the void or spawned from the warp's festering maw. But the Emperor, Radek started, her voice betraying a hint of the indoctrinated faith. The Emperor, Varric interrupted, his tone devoid of reverence, only a weary practicality, is the reason we can fight. His light keeps the great darkness at bay just enough for us to exist in this purgatory. But Israel does not win battles. Radek, our sweat, our blood, the countless lives we throw into the grinder, that's what holds the line. Every day, 1,000 more psychers scream their last on Terra, feeding his endless vigil. And what does it buy us? Another dawn to fight, another night to die. The air outside shivered as something massive impacted nearby, rattling the Pharaoh Creep bunker walls. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Radek instinctively flinched, but Varric didn't even blink. He just stared at the map, his expression a mask of grim resignation. Hope, he continued, his voice softer now, almost a lament, is a luxury we cannot afford. Progress? A myth whispered in ancient texts. There is no grand strategy, no ultimate victory waiting for us beyond the next engagement. There is only the constant, grinding attrition, the ceaseless, horrifying truth of the 41st millennium. We are born into war, we live in war, and we die in war. And when we are gone, the war will simply find new bodies, new souls, to fuel its eternal flame. That is our legacy, Radek. That is humanity's burden.